I think we have quorum this morning. I see Ann Koreman and Dave McKenna, and Dan Klein's here. I haven't seen Glenn yet. I'm sure he'll join us. We'll call to order. Changes. Sorry? Changes to the agenda. Mike Hall sent me an email yesterday, and he has to leave by 10:30, so I'd like to reverse airport and highway this morning. Any other changes, folks? Oh, one other thing. I want to have a short mention, and this is particularly will make Jason happy. I want to mention parking. We'll do that toward the end. Is there any public comment this morning? Hi, Glenn. Is there any public comment this morning? None has been submitted either in writing or no one's asked to be heard this morning on the Zoom meeting. And for my report, I guess it's mostly going to be about the transportation discussion this morning of Route 13, which is the draft Route 13 report. And we're going to hear it first here. And then we've asked for time in November on the full legislature agenda. And Leslin has agreed to allow that for the report to also be given to all the legislators. Jason, do you have a report for us this morning?
Mike, I was going to let Deanna Carruthers, our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, give a quick rundown. This month, she's attending all committee meetings to kind of give you a rundown of what she's working on and just answer any questions that any of the committees may have. So if it's all right, I'll yield my time to Deanna and let her give a overview of her work so far.
Well, we'd be pleased to hear from Deanna. Deanna, welcome. What would you like us to hear about this morning?
Well, good morning, and thank you for the warm welcome. It's so nice to meet all of you. Most importantly, I'll be relocating to Ithaca next Friday, so I'm excited to become an official part of Tompkins County officially. So thank you for that. First and foremost, diversity belongs to all of us, and I say that and say that again. What that meant is for the last 30 days, I've met with just all of department heads, just about some community members, members of JEDI team to kind of get an overview and assessment of where we are. And also that means where do we think we are and where do we want to go? And so with that in mind, that means that all of us have a shared responsibility in that work. So some of the things that I've seen is, one, first and foremost, is looking at the definitions. What are we striving to be? How do we live into what will be our county values? What does that mean in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion statement? What does that mean in terms of being a member of the Government Alliance for Racial Equity? And so looking at those partnerships.
It would be fine if you spoke a little slower. You're saying wonderful things, but some of it's going over my head. So if you would be a little bit slower.
Yes, no, I appreciate that. Yes, that has been a lifelong learning opportunity for me. So thank you very much. Absolutely. I'd happy to do that. What that means is that I spent a lot of times listening, learning. And so what does that mean next? The next steps will be, I'm in the process of putting together a proposal to launch the anti-racist and equity agenda. So going back to the presentation that Jason gave a couple of months ago in terms of working with those different groups, working with JEDI, specifically making sure that we have a vision statement that aligns with the Tompkins County values, ensuring that we are promoting the culture, an organizational culture that belongs to all of us. And that includes freedom of thought. That means freedom of religion. That also means looking at racial inequities. That also means its socioeconomic status, looking at LGBTQ community, all those dimensions that we all say that we care about. And so how do we live into those expectations? Those things are mission critical for all of us to be successful. That also means that I'm also looking at some of the climate survey data. And so where are some of those discrepancies, for lack of a better word? In other words, we think sometimes the majority group of folks have one idea, but then as you dig down into some of the data, sometimes those things look a little different. And so looking at some of that data and seeing where we are, and then also looking at some of the human resources data as well, to ensure that we're all on the same page and in alignment as we develop the strategy to move forward. And the process will be for that, just bringing those things back to you, bringing those back to county administration as well, to make sure that we're all have a shared vision around what that looks like moving forward. Also attended the WDIC meeting as well, and there's some interest in advancing and updating the diversity statement. So looking at how that parallels with or what that looks like in alignment with the Tompkins County values, making sure that all those things that we all work together in that work. Specifically, actually coming up this weekend, Leslin has afforded us the opportunity to be a part of the Racial Equity Institute groundwater training. So we have probably 15 to 20 staff members that will be attending that training this weekend from 8 to 11. And so we're excited about that work as well. What does that mean for all of us? That means that we'll be in the process of rolling out a strategy that supports the work that we say that we all care about. That also means that we'll be having more engagement sessions. I've had several people ask me specifically, who are you? You know, how do we become involved in the work? And so it means bringing the diversity, equity, and inclusion discussion from the 50,000 foot view down to the service delivery area. So it means how are we impacting our customers? And so one of the areas that I'm really excited about jumping in and supporting is the public safety reform process. And so we've all have a role in that as well. And so supporting Jason, supporting our sheriff's department, supporting our corrections department, supporting our mental health services, supporting the ecosystem of services there to ensure that Tompkins County lives up to the reputation in terms of citizens and what we say we aspire to be. And lastly, in terms of those things, just getting the messaging out in terms of the community. We've had lots of media interest, lots of citizen interest. I've received several requests to join boards, things of that nature, just making sure the message that what we do as a community partner resonates. And so that, again, the saying that not just what happens internally impacts our community and it impacts our citizens as well. And so that's just those are some of the things that I'm working on. And so I'll stand for any questions at this time.
Well, that's a very ambitious report this morning. Do we have questions for Deanna? Deanna, will you be joining us at our meetings regularly, or are you just making the rounds at this point, or how can we expect to have good contact with you?
Sir, I believe Ann has her hand raised, and then also I would defer.
Didn't see that, sorry. Okay, go ahead, Ann. You were first then, apparently.
I just wanted to say again, Deanna, welcome and thank you for making the rounds to meet everybody and tell them a little bit about what you're going to be helping us with. And I'm just glad that you're going to be moving here before the snowstorms start the week after that.
Thank you.
Just kidding. It might be 2 weeks. It might be
and
2
bears.
I have an extra shovel, so you let me know.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's all I had.
Thank you. So your question, sir, was surrounding my.
I just wondered how best we're going to be contacting you. Are you be coming to our meetings regularly, or from time to time, or what's going to happen here?
I believe that, so my understanding is that I would not be coming to this meeting regularly. However, if there was something specific related to the organizational level that we needed to provide an update on, I think that I would work through Jason to determine, how to communicate that best.
Fair enough. Anyone else? All right, well, thanks very much for coming in and talking to us this morning, Deanna.
Thank you.
The county has been sponsoring through the planning department and the MPO, the study of a section of Route 13. And Barton and LaJudas have been the consultants for that project. There's been a public meetings. There's been meetings with the oversight committee. And I'm pleased to say that this morning we're going to have a report from Barton and LaJudas about the Route 13 corridor study and the draft report. And at this point, I'd like to turn to Katie Borgella and Fernando D'Aragon to introduce us.
Great, thanks so much, Mike. As I think everyone is aware, but just a reminder, the legislature funded this study in recognition that this section of Route 13 is a real critical component to both commuting and commerce for our county, and interested in maintaining the functionality and safety of the entire corridor. The purpose was to be proactive, to raise awareness of the issues, look at possible solutions, and then advocate for the solutions that are supported by the community. We had a very engaged steering committee, and actually we're thankful to have Mike, Dave, Glenn, and Deborah from the legislature all represented and engaged in the process throughout. So thank you all for your time and commitment to that. And we engaged Barton and LaJudas as the lead contractor with support from Highland Consulting and Labella. And so today, Keith Ewald actually was the project, or is the project manager for Barton and LaJudas. I think we all know that feeling. He got the dreaded call from the school nurse this morning. So he is dealing with a sick child. And Katie Darcy, who has been engaged throughout this whole process, has stepped in to do the PowerPoint and run us through the study this morning. We also have Lorenzo Rotoli on the phone. Hopefully I didn't ruin your last name, Lorenzo. With Labella, and he did the safety analysis, so can help answer questions on that as well. And Fernando has been kind of the co-leader on this, providing data and review of documents. Fernando, did you want to say any words before we start?
Well, only that, good morning, that this study is also included in the long-range transportation plan of the Transportation Council. So it's something that we've had an interest in doing, realizing that the land uses along that corridor are constantly shifting, and recognizing the need to protect Route 13 as an important commuting and commercial corridor in our county. So I say we'll go ahead with the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
Welcome, Katie. Welcome, Lorenzo, and please proceed.
Great, thank you. And thank you for having us. On a personal note, I'm a Cornell grad, so it's lovely to be able to work in Tompkins County whenever I can. So I'm gonna share my screen here, and bear with me. There's a lot of material here. And how much time do we have, just as a reminder?
Well, I would think 20 minutes to half an hour.
Okay, great. So I will try to be as brief as possible, and we'll take questions at the end. So can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, so again, thank you for having us. We worked with Katie Borgella and Fernando. We're pulling together this State Route 13 corridor study over the past year or so, and we're excited to share the results. So I will just get right into it. This is our project team. Like Katie said, we worked with Highland Planning and Labella as well to develop this report. We also had a very engaged steering committee, and these are our members, and we're very appreciative for all of their feedback and effort. And so today we just want to go quickly through the background of the study, why we're doing what we're doing, how we engage the community throughout the process, and then get into some of the preliminary strategies we've come up with. So the study area is starts in the village of Lansing and ends at the village of Dryden's border. It's almost 9 miles long. And it's a significant commuting corridor, I'm sure, as you're all aware, for the region. And so the idea behind this project was just kind of to get a sense of the major issues and opportunities along the corridor, and start to come up with some strategies that the county and the DOT can start to consider moving forward, and identify any projects that may want to be in the pipeline. So just before we start, I think it's always important that we mention that this is a state-owned road, and so therefore there's a project development process that any improvement would have to go through. And so we're at the very beginning of that process, as you can see in this graphic. Like Fernando said, this study was in the LRP and identified that this was a need. So we are taking a preliminary look at what's going on in the corridor and what can be done to kind of mitigate some of the issues that we find. So we took a look at the traffic data. We put traffic counters out in October of 2019, pre-COVID. So our data was not compromised by the lack of drivers during that period. And then we also looked at some crash data over a 5-year period. And then in addition to that, we kind of looked at it from a land use perspective and looked at the existing land use patterns as well as the existing development standards within the village of Lansing and the town of Dryden in terms of zoning. And then we kind of came up with a future development scenario, not a full build out scenario, but what we call a likely build scenario based on market trends and what we envision in the next 10 years to be developed. As I mentioned, we engaged the community throughout the process. Our process kind of shifted with the onset of COVID to more virtual approach, but we did stakeholder interviews. We had a survey which had over 1,500 responses, which is pretty remarkable as far as a community survey goes. And we also held an online public meeting in early September. So these are some of the main issues we heard, mostly safety and congestion issues. And so that's kind of where our improvement strategies seek to address. So I guess we'll just jump right into the strategies for the sake of time. This is kind of an overview of how the strategies are organized. We have intersection-specific strategies. We identified 6 key priority intersections along the corridor, which are Warren Road, Brown Road, and Sapsucker Woods Road, HANSHAW Road, Lower Creek Road, and both of the 366 intersections. And then in addition to that, we have some kind of corridor-wide improvements that would pertain to the entire corridor, which would be some transit improvements, bicycle and pedestrian facilities, and then we pulled together some access management strategies and zoning recommendations for both the town and the village. So like I said, we kind of focused on the intersections mainly because our analysis showed that the majority of issues lie at the intersections more so than the segments between the intersections. So that was kind of our priority focus. And we had 3 different types of intersection strategies that we are recommending. So the first are what we're calling intersection enhancement strategies. These are kind of shorter term, less involved things that are a little bit more feasible in the short term, a little lower cost. So those include things like pedestrian crossings is in the wrong category here, but intersection lighting, signal back plates, which are basically a plate behind the signal to reduce sun glare and increase visibility. And improving vehicle detection systems at intersections, retiming the signals, and that sort of thing. And then the second type of recommendation we have are kind of bigger picture strategies. So that would be actually altering the intersections themselves, whether that be adding turning lanes, reconfiguring intersections to be at more of a 90-degree angle to improve visibility, signalizing intersections that aren't currently signalized, and considering installing roundabouts. And then the third category is just the multimodal intersection strategies, which I will say that most of the multimodal recommendations are included in the corridor-wide improvements, but we thought this was important to include as well. So this is kind of the overview plan. This is a little hard to read, so I might just skip over this and get right into the intersection. So the first one we looked at was Warren Road. This had the highest crash rate along the corridor. It was 5 times higher than the statewide average for similar facilities, which is pretty significant. And there are other issues we found that there were just delays in congestion and a lack of pedestrian and bicyclist facilities. So some of the things that we are recommending in terms of short term was install intersection lighting, and implementing new signage to make vehicles more aware of the fact that they're coming from a limited access highway to a signalized intersection, retiming the signal program, and installing new video vehicle detection systems. Some of the bigger picture items were installing additional turning lanes and actually widening Warren Road at the southbound approach to accommodate an additional left turn lane from State Route 13. So this is one of the conceptual renderings that we pulled together. This is by no means set in stone. This is just kind of to help visualize what this might look like in the future. So this is with the additional turn lanes, some planted medians, some additional pedestrian crossings, and that sort of thing. For Brown and Sapsucker Road, we heard that this was particularly difficult to turn on or onto State Route 13 from these side roads. And there was a crash rate that was twice as high as similar facilities statewide. So again, our goal was just kind of increase safety, increase visibility here. So we're looking at installing intersection lighting, potentially signalizing this intersection, potentially adding a center turn lane to help people trying to turn onto Sapsucker Woods Road or Brown Road from State Route 13. And again, maybe considering a potential roundabout here. And as you can see in this photo, when I was out in the field, I did see some pedestrians crossing here, which honestly seemed like a pretty harrowing task. So we also are recommending some crossing facilities. So this is just again, just a conceptual rendering of what a roundabout would look like here. We kind of determined what the necessary diameter of this roundabout would be and visualized it on an aerial image. And it turns out that this actually would require no right-of-way acquisition as we've designed it here. But again, this is just conceptual and obviously would need some additional engineering studies before implementation. HANSHAW Road was another intersection we identified. This had the second highest crash rate for the city corridor. And again, issues with turning left from State Route 13 onto these secondary roads. So we're looking at installing signal backplates, installing additional lighting, some of the similar facilities recommended in other intersections. And then there's no major intersection configuration enhancement, intersection configuration changes envisioned for this intersection. Lower Creek Road was another one that we heard a lot about, this being feeling very unsafe to drivers. It has the third highest crash rate in the corridor in terms of intersections. And again, it's difficult turning left onto this secondary road. So we thought it would be appropriate to consider signalizing this intersection, installing dedicated turn lanes on State Route 13. Again, maybe considering a roundabout. The idea for this is not to come up with one silver bullet solution, but to propose some alternative strategies that the county and the state can consider moving forward if funding becomes available and if they decide that this is a priority for them. So this is kind of envisioning reconfiguring this intersection to more of a 90-degree right angle intersection. And the reason for that is it improves visibility, and it also decreases the amount of distance that a vehicle has to cross at the intersection. This is the 366 intersection at NYSEG. This obviously is one of the most contentious intersections, I'd say, that we looked at. There's a lot of traffic activity here. And this is obviously a significant part of people commuting to and from Cornell in the AM PM peaks. So we have a whole host of different opportunities here, including installing an additional turn lane on State Route 13, reconfiguring this intersection similar to Lower Creek Road to be more of a 90-degree angle, potentially including a roundabout. And then also we thought that it would be appropriate to kind of realign Pinckney Road and the NYSEG driveway to the east of this intersection, just to kind of reduce the amount of conflict points coming on and off of State Route 13 and make that kind of a four-way intersection. So this, actually this schematic does not show it, but this is the roundabout configuration we kind of identified. The additional turn lane scenario would be an additional turn lane both on State Route 366 and State Route 13. And then the last intersection we looked at was the other 366 intersection. We heard that it was very difficult to turn onto State Route 13 southbound from 366. So we are proposing adding an additional turn lane on 366 and potentially signalizing this intersection to kind of allow people to access the State Route 13 corridor during a dedicated period. So these are some crash reduction factors. Leandro, I hate to put you on the spot. Would you mind going through this briefly?
No worries. So the Federal Highway Administration does have some data that's based on many studies of what would be an expected crash reduction factor. And these factors are really percentages. So we'll take the first one there, signal improvements, installing backplates. Usually these are for east-west corridors, and sun glare is an issue, and there's a lot of times on a police report you'll see didn't see that the signal head was red. So by putting this backplate, and usually have reflectorized tape around it to really make it stand out, it's saying that if there's 100 accidents, that 15 could get reduced. So they're not, as Katie said, none of this is silver bullets to say to eliminate everything, but it gives you an idea and a flavor of what type of, how big of an impact that type of improvement will make. So it's just, again, it's a lot of statistical data that the Federal Highway Administration has compiled. And it gives us a little basis to say, is that a worthwhile investment of our money? If something only has a 2% crash reduction, obviously, really, I think if that's the highest priority improvement. So it gives you a flavor of some of the improvements and what kind of bang you will get for your buck if you implement that.
Great, thank you, Lorenzo. Okay, so moving on to the corridor-wide improvements. In terms of transit improvements, I think through discussions with TCAT, we decided that it's worthwhile the discussion to consider. Currently, sorry, let me back up. Currently, this portion of the study corridor is flag stop service, meaning anyone can flag down a bus at any point along the corridor. The section between Warren Road and 366 is actually the TCAT buses don't stop along the corridor. They're given traffic volume and traffic speed. So we discussed with TCAT whether it would be worthwhile to consider creating a designated stop service rather than a flag stop service, and there are pros and cons to both of those. So this report kind of goes through the pros and cons of both of those systems in terms of these factors listed here. And while we don't make a specific recommendation for one service versus the other, we've kind of put together some recommendations that TCATs can take in terms of next steps for kind of determining that based on rider surveys and additional analysis. And then we kind of put together if there were to be designated stops along this corridor, what kind of amenities and improvements would be beneficial. And then in terms of bike and ped accommodations, we kind of split the corridor into two sections. Again, from Warren Road to 366, we're proposing a shared use path. The right-of-way is particularly wide and there's plenty of space for this. And we thought it would be a great way to connect to the Dryden Rail Trail, as well as some of the activity centers near the Cornell Business Park, and that sort of thing. Further east along the corridor, development kind of is more sparse and a little less dense, and maybe doesn't necessitate an entire shared use path along the entire corridor. So we are just recommending in that instance bicyclist signage just to kind of improve awareness and visibility of non-motorists along the corridor, and then ensuring that if designated stops are developed along that portion of the corridor, that there are adequate pedestrian and bicyclist connections to those stops. Again, this is a 10-year planning horizon for this study. So should development continue to occur, move farther east along towards the village of Dryden, it might be the case that in the future, the shared use path would want to be extended further to the village of Dryden. But given what we're envisioning for future development in the next decade or so, we thought this was an appropriate way to kind of split the corridor. So this is kind of a conceptual rendering. Unfortunately, the way that the aerial is, the shared use path is a little off to the side there. But this is just to kind of get a sense of how that would operate at the Warren Road intersection. And then lastly, well, I guess this isn't last, but we put together some access management strategies that the town and the village might want to consider, implementing in their zoning recommendations. So that these two pieces are kind of hand in hand. And one of our most significant zoning recommendations would be develop a corridor overlay district, which would kind of get to the heart of dealing with access management along this corridor. And so, yeah, that's those are the land use kind of recommendations. And these are more spelled out in the report if you are interested. And so then we pulled together some high-level cost estimates for each of the intersections. I apologize, this is pretty grainy. But as you can see, these are kind of big picture, big numbers to look at. So this would require some significant funding for the state. Each of these cost estimates include one of the intersection configuration strategies for the most part. So that's why the costs are so high. And then in addition to that, we kind of created an implementation matrix for each of the intersection strategies. So it's just kind of identifying what we're proposing, what the intended outcome is, an order of magnitude in terms of cost, potential funding sources, whether it's state or federal, and what we envision, how we envision these happening over the next 10 years in terms of timing. So that's it. I'm sorry, I know that was a whole lot of information crammed into 15 minutes or so, so I apologize if that's very overwhelming, but all of this information is available on the project website, and we are happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. And I believe we've all got the email of this draft report. Is there anyone that didn't receive that yet? If you could drop your, well, maybe folks will want to go back to some of the slides. I don't know. I see Shauna has her hand up. Dan has his hand up, and Ann has her hand up. Let's go Shauna, Dan, Ann.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. I was on transportation 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago whenever we talked about doing the study, and it's really nice to see the results. So thank you for doing it. I have a district that many of my residents use the Warren Road and the Brown Road intersections. And I know I have ridden a bike across Warren Road and felt that it has been very dangerous, because even if you're at the stoplight and you're with your bike, you really have to truck it to make that light in order to get across the freeway. I guess my question is, would you also want to add, I know that there's bike lanes on the other side of Warren Road, but there's not on the one side. There is on the one side that goes towards the post office. However, there are not bike lanes on the other side. And would you actually add those bike lanes as part of your suggestions?
So yeah, I think part of this rendering here is the installation of a cycle track on the shoulder of Warren Road. So yeah, I think, yeah, that is a pretty, when I was out in the field trying to cross that, was a pretty harrowing experience. And actually there's a crossing button at this intersection. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but
yeah.
And but there is no light there. There's no pedestrian light. So it's kind of the button to nowhere. So definitely, I think this would be one of the more significant intersections for installing pedestrian facilities, just because there is so much activity going along on
Okay.
Warren Road.
And then at Brown Road, whenever you do the roundabout, how do you actually institute a biking lane or a biking path in that roundabout so that it's safe?
That's a great question, and I will not claim to be a traffic engineer. I'm a planner, so I don't know exactly technically. Maybe Lorenzo could jump in, but I think here. Sorry, go ahead, Lorenzo.
I can just share what I've seen. Usually, if there's a bike lane coming into on the roadway coming into the roundabout, at that point I've seen it where it becomes shared space, so they sort of merge, and the bike acts like a vehicle and takes space in the roundabout, and they have precedence, or they have equal right to the roadway, just like a vehicle. That's what I've seen done. Again, different or different agencies may have a little twist on how they do that, but certainly we'd use best practices when it gets to detailed design. That's evolving all the time on best practices.
Okay, thank you both, and thank you, Mike, for letting me ask questions.
Sure, Dan.
Thanks. I didn't know what was going to come out of this study, and I'm really pleased to see these results and these suggestions and analyses. It's very easy for me to imagine how each of these suggestions would help along 13. It seems very practical and, like I say, easy to visualize. A question and a comment. The question is that you suggested or proposed possibility of right angle intersections for a number of the places along the way, Lower Creek Road and 366 near NYSEG, but not HANSHAW Road. Can you say why not there?
That is a great question, and honestly, I was not part of the traffic engineering team that came up with this recommendation, so I can write that down, and I can certainly get back to you on that.
Okay, thanks. And then my last comment is, I know this is very early, in this process, but I just wanted to throw this in the hopper for the roundabouts. I have a secret little nerdy hobby I've taken photos of roundabouts all around the world. And I've also was involved in the maintenance of the one small roundabout in downtown Ithaca on Spencer Street. And they are a tremendous opportunity for beautification and tourism promotion, because a lot of people coming into Ithaca from this direction would be tourists. And obviously you can't block visibility, et cetera, but I just want to throw in the hopper that there's an opportunity there to let people coming in know that they are approaching something, a destination.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that would be a great addition to our narrative, is kind of promoting that opportunity for tourism and branding for the region.
Thanks, Dan. Ann?
Thank you for doing this study. I hate to go after Dan, but I dislike roundabouts, is what I wanted to say, in high traffic areas. And in low traffic areas, I think they work great. And I haven't taken pictures of them, but I've traveled on them, walked them, bicycled them, motorbiked them, driven them all over the world. And so so for the roundabouts for traffic, I think it keeps it moving, but as far for vehicles, but then for people walking or on bicycles, I've often found it much harder to get across safely. And I much prefer any intersection to be put at a right angle, because as you see this picture here with the HANSHAW Road, trying to figure out where a pedestrian's going to be safely is a challenge. So, and especially if you're talking about adding any passing lanes, any right turn lanes, then or left turn lanes, then it makes it even wider. And I think, well, I know for me, the number one thing is safety. And I don't, of course, want to sacrifice too much of the congestion and slow traffic down, but I really think safety as far as accidents for cars and safety for people. We would like to get people in general out of their vehicles where possible and be able to walk their neighborhoods. And it makes it more affordable too, because not everybody has a car. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts. Thank you.
Great,
Thanks,
thank you.
Ann. Martha Robertson?
Yeah, thanks very much, and I appreciate this a ton of information in the report. I looked at it last night. Would add to the roundabout discussion that can be really tricky, but great if they're done well in the right place. I'd remind folks this highway has a lot of 18-wheeler trucks, big vehicles, so you'd have to design them with really generous, curves. I think there's a real conflict here. Every time you add turning lanes to make it easier for cars or extra lanes, you're making it harder for pedestrians and bicyclists. And you're almost adding to speed when you make it so that people don't have to slow down so much. So I'm a little concerned about the whole fear of you're taking a highway, what feels like a highway, and proposing adding a lot of traffic lights. I think that's actually a big problem at Warren Road. And let me just say, this whole corridor is my legislative district, except for the very eastern end. So I know this area a lot. It feels like a highway. It doesn't feel like anywhere that you would recognize and expect to see traffic lights. So I might almost propose something completely different, which is more of a complete streets approach to try to, I know this is the core conflict, right? How do you keep traffic moving and make it safe, but make it human scale and enable people on bikes and foot to navigate it? So I would caution to be very careful if you're going to add traffic lights. The whole scale of the road kind of has to be somehow brought in so that people understand they should expect traffic lights. I would say just on the NYSEG 366 intersection, we've had years of conversation about how that could be a new village in the county, a real area where you could see commercial and housing development. So I would be very opposed to this being redesigned without a comprehensive study about how you might use that land all around, within a 1 mile radius, to create a new streetscape that might have a very different function from what's there. So I've just thrown out a bunch of different things, but this is a great start. It's a really important study, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into it.
No, absolutely. And I agree that it's kind of it's a balancing act between, this is a pretty significant commuting corridor. That's probably not going to change anytime soon. But at the same time, allowing for those pedestrian and non-motorist connections and making sure that people are able to use it with or without a car. And I think, the approach here would be kind of, like you said, focusing on nodal development and kind of clustering development at strategic locations so that traffic can still move functionally, but there's also some connectivity for non-motorists as well.
Yeah, and I think that NYSEG intersection really cries out for a very serious in-depth study. Thank you.
Thanks.
I hope you've been doing some of that with this. I don't see any other blue hands up, or anyone else want to say anything or sing out so I can hear you.
I would. Aaron from Weights and Measures.
I'm sorry, who's that?
Aaron from Weights and Measures. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had a question
Welcome,
about
Aaron.
I had a question about the Warren Road and Route 13 intersection. If you could flip back to that, please.
Do you want
the one, yeah, that one right there.
Okay.
Well, you see how you've got the 2 left-hand turn lanes?
Yes.
I've found it in other areas as well as at the intersection going into the Pyramid Mall and Trip Hammer Road, where people tend to switch lanes in mid-turn and cut other people off. Have you put any thought into that?
So I think something else you could consider, and I think we've discussed this with the committee, and this is probably worthwhile to include in the report, is putting striping down kind of with dashed lines, kind of showing, you know, you're still staying in the same lane and directing each other to, or directing vehicles to stay in their lane within the intersection itself. So that's certainly something that could be considered.
Thank you, Aaron.
I don't know what the regulation is on that as far as the DOT goes, but usually like the dash lines on the highway means it's a passing zone. Do you think maybe it would be a good idea to put solid lines in the turning lanes so that people would know not to merge into the next lane in mid-turn, as opposed to the dashed lines?
Aaron, I think normally it's the size of that striping, the dash. I think it's usually hatches as you see on State Route 13, or it may be 10 foot, then 30 foot, then 10 foot, then 30 foot. I think what Katie's mentioned, what I've usually seen at major intersections where there are dual left turn lanes, is they're real tight spacing, almost like dots. I've always grown up with the terminology pecker lines, but I think they're the short dash lines, and it sort of designates a passing versus a just guidance line.
Okay.
Hey, Dan's got another question. Well, go ahead and finish that. I'm sorry, I stepped on your answer. We all right?
Yeah.
Dan's got another question.
Thank you. Maybe I missed this in here. If you're headed from Ithaca to Dryden, after you go through the Warren Road intersection, that's currently when it goes down from 2 lanes to 1. That's the right spot?
Yes.
That is my least favorite spot on Route 13. Is that little spot addressed somewhere in the study?
It was brought, can I just step in and say it was brought up in the client committee that needed to be extended out further, as was the idea of an overpass of Warren Road over Route 13, similar to Trip Hammer. I know in doing this study, the consultants have kept an eye on costs, of course, and know that something like that is very expensive. But I want to let you know that these things were brought up in client committee. And then Katie or Lorenzo, go ahead and respond.
I'm sorry, can you clarify where exactly?
Okay, so you're now heading east where your number 2 is.
Okay. Yep.
Yep, you're heading east, and just a little bit out of your picture there, it goes from 2 lanes to 1.
Yes.
And it's always kind of crazy there. It's like a little motor speedway, like people are trying to get in front of each other. I'm just wondering if that little squeeze spot was addressed in any way.
I think we definitely heard that in the survey, that this was kind of a difficult place. And I think the solution at the time was to kind of put some additional warning out there that you are going to have to merge when passing through this intersection. I think that's the extent of the recommendations at this point, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Just to add that sometimes, and it looks like this intersection is this type of case, if you're on the west side of the intersection, to process that much traffic through the signal, you probably need 2 eastbound or northbound lanes and continue on 13. But then once you get through the signal, then maybe the road capacity 1 lane suffices. So you have to have that drop-off lane, unfortunately, because if you didn't have that, everybody would know what to do on the east side, or I'm sorry, on the west side of the intersection. They'd all be in 1 lane, and you'd have an unbalanced lane. You'd have hundreds of cars in the lane that doesn't drop off, and everybody would know the second lane is going to drop off so fast. So I think that's why they have the length that they do there, to give people time to do that zipper effect where they merge into the 1 lane. But again, I didn't do the original design, but that's my speculation on why that's there, and they just need room to merge into 1 lane. And east of there, they probably have capacity with 1 lane to handle the traffic. But it's as Katie said, I think they're just anything we do to tip off the drivers in advance that this is happening, and you can merge and better signing, better striping, edge lines, things like that. There's tools in the toolbox to try to enhance that operation, that merging operation.
All right, we're going to have to wrap up. Any final questions?
Yeah, Mike.
Martha, you got another one, please, but please make it short.
Yeah, that spot there, it looks like you did actually extend that merge line, which would help a lot. So I think Mike Lane, my point about the NYSDOT intersection is, yes, of course, the traffic study was really investigated, but I think in terms of the right kinds of solutions, creative solutions to that intersection, you really want to be looking more in depth at land use, potential land uses, how could you create a village? And that's a different thing than, or goes beyond the traffic study. So I would hope that before any major investments are made in that intersection relative to traffic, that a more in-depth look at the land uses would be done first. That was all. Thank you.
Our thanks to Katie and Lorenzo, and to Fernando and Katie Borgella. This has been particularly interesting, and we look forward to the next presentation at the full legislature.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
We'll see you now. You're welcome to stay if you want. I mentioned early on that in deference to Mike Hall's schedule, he has to leave. We were going to take airport next. So Mike?
Well, thanks, Mike. You're all that stands between me and the dentist chair, which actually is pretty important because the appointment
to drag it out.
Yeah, the appointment was canceled back in April. This is the first time we've been able to catch up. Just a quick update on the airport. We got a few new faces on here. We have one flight a day to Michigan and North Carolina. And both those states are now COVID restricted states. So we're collecting more New York State health declarations and monitoring the traffic. The load factors on our flights are running about 60%, which is important because after the 30th of September, the CARES Act no longer requires that they continue to serve markets like Ithaca in exchange for having received support in the spring. So the fact that we're at 60% is important because that basically is a break-even number on the airplane, and it means that there's no particular pressure to change the service. American Airlines is doubling to 2 flights a day to Charlotte in November, and then to 3 flights a day the week that Cornell is leaving town. That's something that we coordinated between Cornell and American Airlines. Normally they couldn't change schedules like that, but they've got extra capacity right now, so that worked out. Also having a discussion with Delta about a day trip to New York City. Probably would be service that would begin in the spring, but they have a lot of excess capacity in the New York metropolitan area. And if you look at economic development and people relocating to Tompkins County, but still having New York ties, this could be an interesting piece of service, and Delta would like to talk with us toward the end of the year. The fuel farm will be operational next month. One note is that the paving operation in the fuel farm was assigned to an MWBE sub. They had a reputation that wasn't stellar. I asked that we provide extra supervision and assistance to that contractor to make sure that they were able to perform up to standard. We did, they did. We got an excellent paving job, and feel very good about that outcome. Lastly, you asked about the DMV pad. We have it sited. It would be southwest of the DOT building on the west side of Warren Road. It's a good place for it because there's no vertical development to a DMV testing pad. It's just a parking lot, if you will. And now that we're done with the terminal and the fuel farm, that'll become a project that will develop some additional specification on. GST BOCES is interested in managing and educating, training drivers. So we've got pieces coming together, and I'll give you an update from time to time as that project matures. And then lastly, we've got resolutions this morning. Outstanding on the terminal project are two pieces of funding. One is federal under CARES and perhaps under a subsequent authorization. The other is the NYSEG no pipe alternative money. And it's been my committed effort all along to keep us below the current bond limit of 10 million. But the resolution today addresses the possibility that won't happen, and we need to go to a higher limit. So we need to deal with that resolution and the subsequent meetings that are associated with it.
Okay, before we take the resolutions, are there questions for Mike? Okay, then let's go to the resolutions. Resolution A, resolution authorizing a public hearing in accordance with section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended. That's ID 9610. That's the public hearing on the $13 million bond. Someone want to move that? I see Glenn's hand, seconded by Dan. Discussion. Ready to vote? Ann?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
That's unanimous. I vote yes. And the second resolution of the Tompkins County Legislature, this is B, as elected legislative body of Tompkins County, New York, in accordance with section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, approving the issuance of the County of Tompkins, New York, of its airport bond anticipation notes, 2021 Series A, subject to alternative minimum tax, by the way, in an aggregate principal amount of $13 million. That's ID 9611. Someone want to move that one?
I'll move it.
Dan, seconded by Dave. Discussion on this. Rick, do you have any comments?
No, I think we have to go through this TEFRA hearing and this TEFRA resolutions every time we borrow for the airport or reborrow for the airport. So since this is covering the next note for the airport, which comes due in February, we'll be refinancing the $13 million. And because it's a refinancing for the airport, we have to go through this entire TEFRA process again. So this sets us up for the schedule for the hearing and the actual authorization of the resolution later on in December. So it's just a continuation of all our airport financings and refinancings.
Okay. Anyone
Mike,
else?
Yeah, I don't know if you can,
Martha?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see hands from where you're.
Well, I can, but you're up in the corner. I didn't catch it. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Mike Hall, you mentioned the non-pipe alternative, the application to NYSEG for the geothermal. Have you gotten any more word yet on what dollars are attached to that?
No, we haven't. I think if I'm correct off the top of my head that the award recommendation went to the Public Service Commission, and that's the last we've heard. And we never did hear how much it might be. We asked for 1.5 million. That's obviously a key piece of funding potentially for the project. And then, at the federal level, there's discussion about airlines and airports and some subsequent federal support, but it's anybody's guess where that might turn out. I would say, however, it's likely that issue will be resolved before February, one way or another. Probably not
Right,
until after the election at this point.
Yeah, on the federal aid, but the non-pipe alternative money, that might be on the agenda for PSC this month. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Getting back to what's on the table, we need to vote on the bonding resolution. Let's start with Dan.
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
and I vote yes. That's unanimous. Anything else on airport issues, Mike, or any of the members of the committee? Thank you. Good luck at the dentist.
Thanks.
We're going to go back up and go to the highway department next. Jeff, welcome.
Everyone. Beautiful day outside. No action items today. I have a capital payment summary report and the quarterly highway capital status report. Last couple of quarters, I've gone through that number of different ways. But to start with the first item, if you have any questions on the capital payment summary report, I can answer those.
That is on
Page 4.
Page 4. Any questions from anyone on that? Guess not. Jeff?
Okay, the next item, as a report, again, last few quarters, I've gone through them. I could go through it again, highlighting some areas.
I think that's always useful. We start on page 6. Maybe you could mention each project and see if there are any questions or anything you want to highlight.
Sounds good. And I'll do that. Etna Lane, DOT has design approval. We're moving into the final design phase. I believe that Etna Lane project will be ready to go to bid early next year. If everything goes on schedule, and could be in construction sometime in 2021. Same goes for the next page, Central Chapel Road. We also have design approval on that one, and would be along the same schedule as far as that goes. Ludlowville Road Bridge is under construction. Construction is slightly delayed. I just checked. We had a status meeting yesterday, which I was in another meeting, so I wasn't able to attend. But it's only about a week delay. They've caught up a little bit, and for the most part been staying pretty much within that week as far as their original schedule. Where they're at in the project right now, they've completely poured concrete and constructed one side of one abutment. This week they're pouring and be pouring the other side abutment, and then after a concrete test of about 3 days, if the test passed according to the specifications, they plan to be setting beams as early as late next week, and then probably could be the following week. So they're coming along really well on that. That's good news. And I haven't heard anything on the state road bridge project, but we're in October. I think they were planning on having it awarded, or pretty soon. I haven't heard anything, but I expect to hear whether or not the bids come in and it gets awarded, and we have that project starting soon on the state road in Lansing.
Jeff, may I ask, could we expect the DOT to start putting in markers and signs and things for the detour? Are they going to be doing that?
I know last month I reported that we had witnessed what appeared to be contractors on site at the bridge, looking at the bridge, which indicated, now realize I could call someone and find out, but it's all been kind of hearsay. I really need to do that to get the actual where they are on it. But witnessing the contractors on site gave us the idea that it was likely out to bid. I did search around. I did not find where it was out to bid anywhere, but that doesn't mean I wasn't looking in the right place. I really want to check back in with them. It's somewhat irrelevant in the way that how our bridge now under construction may or may not impact that project. But at the same time, I think it's good to have that information be able to share with F&I and things like that. So I'll check back in, and I'll send everyone an email here as soon as I hear something, just to follow up on that piece.
I do think there's actual curiosity as to when they'll actually close 34B. I think people will want to know about that, and I assume the state will put out press release and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would expect so, but knowing when it's planned and coming and how it's progressing along with their schedule would be nice to know too, just for everyone, you know, so the closure of the bridge, as far as the demolition was planned to start the last week in November. So that's where we're at with the last time I heard of the schedule with the state. So it was supposed to be bid out and awarded, and then have a demolition plan accepted, so that it could be, they were going to completely shut it down, tear it out through the winter. And then as it got into the springtime, able to work and build, then they would start building the new structure going into the warmer temperatures of the spring. It was the original plan. So let me get in touch with them and find out. I'm curious myself. I have looked around, but I haven't been able to find anything concrete.
Thank you.
Ellis Hollow Phase 3 reconstruction is underway. The weather's cooperated. You probably saw some of the delays in the start date. That was due to weather and temperature. The process is dependent upon warm temperatures and no rain, at least for the first couple of days. They were able to do that. It's curing nicely. They're doing some other work around on the project, fixing some culverts at intersections, doing a repair on a storm drain drop inlet down in the East Hill area. It's going very well. The paving, on a nice, I would love them to be paving today, but they'll be picking a day, I believe, next week to do that, the final course paving. It'll be striped that same day. And that, for the most part, will be completion of the project with the exception of a few punch list items. It's great to get this done this year. I don't see any reason at this time that it wouldn't happen or wouldn't be completed. They've stepped into it, and I feel confident they will be completing it this year. It's good news.
Yes.
East Hill, next page, East Hill Intersection Safety Project. We have the final design submitted and approved to DOT. We're ready to obligate construction funds and go out to bid on this project. This is a relatively small project. It's a crossing project. It's a pedestrian actuated crossing, flashing when someone's in the intersection. This is down at actually on Ellis Hollow at the East Hill crossing. This could be a cold weather project completed that way. So, you know, therefore I'm still anticipating this coming very soon in the next month or so. Good to get this one completed as well. There's really not much update on South Street Extension Slope Project. There are a few little washouts that we've been washing. We're completing the construction contractor portion of the project as far as paying them. What's going on out there now was not really an aspect of the project. These are things that I believe we're going to review and look at and try and do some work ourselves or watch it down the road. These aren't major issues. For the most part, it's a great project. The seeding has come along very nicely. So, you know, with everything going on this spring, I've said this a million times, right? We really need to get out there and review it, and we just haven't had the chance to, but we do plan on, we have a nice dry summer, which should indicate, you know, any areas that we need to spend some time and to do some maintenance repair on some of the slight slide areas and some springs. But this is a good project, good to get done. Like I said, there's a little bit of work that we plan on doing in-house on this. A couple of the next projects are presently on hold, but I feel as though as we get into fall, we'll be able to kind of get restarted, reoriented, kind of do a check-in and get them moving again. First one being Station Road. Someone's asking a question.
Sorry, is that?
What's that?
We were getting some feedback, but go ahead.
First one is Station Road Streams Restoration Project. This is really in permit phase, working with DEC. It is a DEC funded project. They have a very close and, you know, watchful interest in this. We're working through them with that to get that completed, but there's been no exchange of information with them either. I'm sure we're also undergoing similar type strains on their time and the ability to complete projects during the COVID pandemic. Morrell Road Bridge, I'm sorry, down in Newfield. This is the site you asked last meeting, Michael, about the Bailey Bridge. This is the site the Bailey Bridge is on. This is a single lane bridge that makes sense to be a single lane bridge. It just needs to have some work done to it to raise the posting. That's our goal with the original structure, is to at least either review and repair, rehabilitate the existing structure, or consider alternatives that make sense cost-wise. Our Bostic Road, I mean, we say it's on hold, but there has been some exchange of emails trying to get that started. We're looking at, pretty seriously now at the floor. We're trying to partner, actually get into detailed specifications as far as replacing the concrete floor, doing it a bay at a time, looking at what work that we want to complete in-house to save funds, and then likely have a contractor come in and pour a new floor. That would be a great improvement. What we have now is a deteriorating floor. We've been looking at resurfacing with an epoxy coatings, and we haven't been able to get good feedback on the successful longevity of that product. Seems like everyone says it's good for a couple of years, and then it just starts breaking off. It's a lot of weight, a lot of metal hitting floors, construction, mechanic areas. So it makes sense. We think best option is to go with a complete floor replacement. We'll be doing that a bay at a time in order to maintain service to our own vehicles and any other departments that need service on their vehicles. That's kind of the last little conversation I've had with that. I know there's a lot of other little pieces to that as far as improving out there, but just wanted to make you aware. Thank you. Bridge New York projects haven't had a lot of exchange with them. We've had some increases indicated to us by the consultant through New York State DOT. As you know, DOT is managing these projects. All the increases have come in a timely manner, and that we were able to adjust our capital program to address any possible increase in costs, so that when it comes time to do them, we'll be ready and we'll have the needed funding available to move the projects forward. These were 100% New York funds funded on a cost estimate that we applied for these 6 culvert projects. Any increase over that original amount is 100% local cost. So just to let you, we are on that, and I expect the original plan was that those would be bid together as one large project, and that it would be in sometime during the 2021 construction season. But I haven't heard any update on that, and as I hear more, I'll share that. Bridge New York, these are other projects that are county bridges that are underway. The Town of Dryden Freeze Road Bridge, we've talked about that. I'm not sure if Mike or anybody else has any updates on that. As well, the Ulysses Bridge, the final design report has been submitted to DOT for approval. The Town of Ulysses was able to secure Bridge New York funding on a county bridge, similar to Dryden on George Road and Freeze. Project closeout, as I talked about already in earlier meetings, phase 4, we completed that last year. We're closing that project out. The Connington Road, we were kind of hanging on to that funding. There's a little piece in there thinking we may need it for the phase 3 piece, but it appears that we're going to be good there. So we're moving ahead with closeout. Connington Road intersection safety, all the extended Department of Health concerns and forms have been approved by Department of Health through Town of Ithaca Water Department. So we're able to now receive reimbursement on the water line portion from the town, which is enabling us to now close out that project as well. And then as we all know, the George Road Bridge project with Dryden being the sponsor on that has been completed and is being closed out as well. Other information, other projects has been closed. No plans here. Carter Creek Road in Newfield, there's just been no interest. It's a very narrow road that goes into state land. Fall Creek Road over Fall Creek Bridge, that's a future project. It's on the tip for design. It's out in 2022, so it's a few years out. And then a locally funded project at this time, although we're looking to secure state and any other funding source, state and federal funding that we can, certainly to help us with this local piece. But the Cortlandt Street over Owasco, this is in the village of Groton, right near the lumber store. So that bridge, due to working through our capital plan this spring, has been kind of pushed out another year or so, and it's on hold at this time, being the fact that it's pushed out. We don't have any funding. The last page is our kind of our update on our roads, where we're at. I did this at last month's meeting. There's little change. It's the 2020 road and bridge work. If there's any questions on that, I can go through it. If you want to ask me any specifics about any road projects that are ongoing, I can tell you real quickly to finish up that we have paved all of our roads at this time, with the exception of a couple roads in Ulysses, that being Halseyville, Weatherby, and Connecticut Hill. And those are being paved. Those are ready to go, and they're being paved next week. We've moved crews out to Coddington Road this week. So we're going to work on looking at, we've been able to do some work out there. We think likely we may be able to pave at least 2 miles out starting on the south end of Coddington Road. And those are our last two projects, Coddington Road and Schaefer Road in Newfield, we're moving to. So we're doing a lot of detail kind of finish up, service orders, people that have, ditching problems, things like that. We've been kind of bounced around the county, things that typically we always run into a large list in the fall, but it's even larger this year based on the spring that we had. So we're really trying to tie a lot of that down, but also thinking about next year and moving forward. So that's it. That's my report for now. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Jeff. I have a question from Ann and then Martha.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks, Jeff, for the report. I was, one of the questions you did answer, I was going to ask about Halseyville Road section, and you said should be started next week. That sound about right, you said?
Yep, that's on the schedule. Seneca Paving is coming in next week to pave that.
Okay, I put in the chat my phone number for you. If you or someone is going out to look at the South Street stabilization or the Cemetery Road Bridge, I'd be interested in tagging along and seeing from your point of view what the projects entail.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Martha, then Dave.
Yeah, I see Dave's got his hand up. Go ahead as a committee member first.
Okay, thanks, Martha. Jeff, did you get up there on Black Oak yet?
I saw the tree, if that's what you're talking about. Yeah, we're trying to get there.
Okay.
I followed up with a photo and I sent you that email the next day after you brought it to my attention. I haven't talked to the individual. It is our tree. It does need to be cut. It's a dead tree with no bark left on it. It's just a matter of us getting the time to get out there and get it down and cleaned up.
Yeah, I gave him that message that you were going to do your best to get there this fall.
Okay.
Because he called me a week and a half ago, I guess it was now.
Okay.
Anyway, just wanted to check in and see if you'd gotten there because I haven't been down that road yet.
We have, okay, so yeah, we haven't gotten there to cut the tree. I didn't quite get your question at the beginning. We have not cut it yet.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Martha.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mike, for letting me take the time. Jeff, the roads that are in black and they say planned, is that planned for next year?
Yeah, at this time it would be next year.
Okay, so and you mentioned Coddington a little bit now. I would point at, remind you, I'm sure you remember the lower Pine Tree, the southern part of Pine Tree Road, folks were very organized and concerned when the bridge was near Judd Falls was raised, and they wanted a whole redesign and relook at their section of Pine Tree. Is that being considered at all? Looking at the configuration and the shoulders, et cetera?
Yes and no. We recently have had a large gas line project improvement, worked with NYSEG on it. It went up a whole shoulder of the road all the way up to Hannes. That project, even though it was a subcontractor to NYSEG, it was obviously a county road. We permitted it. We brought in, a week ahead of time. We asked them to post electronic message boards. We did announcements. They did door knockers, met with people, any concerns. We did still receive calls during the construction. We followed up on. They were very responsive. I think the community out there knows, that there's construction needed. The road is very rough. Some of the issues that were encountered before with the people in that area had to do with widening and sidewalks. This project is not any part of that. We're only really repairing any drainage that needs to be done. There's a lot of storm drainage down the east side of the road, and that section, although the storm drain itself is nice, it needs a lot of work. Those storm inlets quite often plug with debris. There's some strategies we're going to implement there to help with that. And then other than that, it's really just a paving project, a construction project as far as a paving improvement through there. We're not doing any widening. There will be announcements and, electronic message boards and things like that, but it isn't like the project of old, I believe, that I recall very well that you're bringing back up, the public was very interested in any changes that we were making out there. I don't see this as that type of project as far as any changes. It's more of a maintenance paving project.
Okay, and you're not here, you're in touch with folks because of the gas project, but you're not hearing a lot of call for a radical redo of that section.
I don't think it was ever a radical redo. I think it was an addition of a sidewalk. I never saw that it was a radical redo. There has been some, people have come to us with great interest in clearing a canopy in the same location where we had previous owners that were really didn't want to see any trees cut. As you know, we don't cut any trees. We don't have to, but there's some major on the top of the hill near the Hannes intersection. There's a couple of new owners in there that have come to us with interest in clearing some of the trees along the right of way, both for visibility coming out of their driveway, various reasons. So I know some of the people have changed in the neighborhood a little bit as well that have become aware of in the last 12 months.
Okay, that'll change the dynamics. All right, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Martha.
Anything else? Jeff, thank you very much for your report and answering our questions this morning.
No problem. Thank you.
Let's move on to the Department of Recycling and Materials Management. We want to hear about our RFP for recycling center. Who wants to start?
First, we're going to hear about the recycling. The item is called, where are we here? It's curbside recycling enforcement plan rejection phase.
All right.
And I've got some folks here. If you recall, we have walked you through the various phases of cleaning up the recycling stream and removing contamination. And remember when we did the baseline study in the winter, we had about a 6.5% contamination rate, which is far better than others in other places. However, we were going to get that number down, basically below 5%. We're going to do another calculation of that at the facility in the winter again. So in our attempt to make progress, we've moved from the please, just a reminder, to a warning sticker that said what people did wrong, to now an enforcement plan to reject bins. Seth is going to give you a brief update on the plan we gave you, as well as where we stand to date with respect to the warning stickers, and there's good news there. And then we'll talk about the enforcement And Jeremy, our communications coordinator, will also share with you the game plan for how we're educating and continuing to work with the public to see our numbers continue to go down here starting November 1.
That's fine. Go ahead.
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
thanks, guys. So just to kind of recap what Barb said, we are soon to be moving into our last phase of the curbside enforcement plan. We are currently finishing up with the warning phase of the warning stickers. Just to kind of give you a little background on that, when we first started running the warning stickers back in December of 2019, drivers were provided this tool, these stickers, to inform residents that there's contamination in the recycling bin. When we were tracking these numbers of the amount of stickers going out on the streets, we did this in increments of every other week because it's every other week collection for recycling. We were seeing numbers of close to 700 stickers being given out every 2 weeks. Since that time, when we launched in December of 2019, I think you guys all have this chart. We've seen those numbers decrease quite a bit right up until September 20th, 2020. And we've gone down to right around in the 250 number range of stickers given out. To update that even further, the last 2 weeks, which isn't reflected on this graph, the last week of September through October 9th, we gave away 194 stickers, which is our lowest to date. So we realized that this is working. We've kind of seen these numbers kind of plateau out a little bit. And we felt it was a good time to go into our third and final phase, which is the rejection sticker phase. So starting on November 2nd, we will be providing these recycling drivers the rejection stickers. So this is kind of like their final notice of you have contamination in your bin and we cannot collect it. We will also be following up with a second audit starting in January 2021 to get the contamination rate of the same routes that we did before back in January of 2020. The rejection stickers will be provided. I already mentioned that. I will be
that they've gotten.
Yes. So you guys have a copy provided of the red colored rejection sticker. I have spoke with the operations director of Casella. They've been provided this information. I'm actually talking with each individual recycling driver this week to give them all of the updates to make sure we're prepared to move forward with the rejection phase.
Okay, we have an extensive public education campaign that has already started, and we gave you a copy of a week-by-week plan for how we're going to be again continuing to reach people. Jeremy is just going to do a quick review of that plan for you, just so you know what we're thinking here.
Yeah, hi everyone. So a big centerpiece of most of our public education efforts is sending out a press release. We sent one out earlier this month, the week of October 4th, letting people know about the November 1st date, why your bin can get rejected in some cases, and basically just giving a heads up. We're also going to be sending out a reminder press release the week before the November 1st deadline. Another thing we're doing is we worked with our graphic designer to create an ad that we're running in the Ithaca Voice, Tompkins Weekly, and the Ithaca Journal. And you've probably seen it, but it looks like this. It says, "Don't get rejected." It's a curbside bin with examples of what should go in your bin included. And then, we're using our website, of course. We're including all that information on there and drawing attention to anybody who is visiting our website to that message. And we're using our social media platforms to, get some more specific messages out as well. Like, we're going to be using photos of bins that could get rejected because of contamination that I'm going to take from out around the county. Or more specific examples of what reasons why your bin can get rejected. So hopefully that will cause the public to be ready for that rejection phase to go into effect, and we'll see them not be taken off guard by it.
We're also going to reach out to the local town and village newsletters. And as we get into this in November, we're going to be tracking, again, the numbers of rejections and also the most typical materials, although we know pretty well. Plastic bags is one of them. What's another one?
Styrofoam.
Styrofoam's another one. And what's the third one?
Probably electronics.
Electronics, okay. So, we're going to look at that. Jeremy's going to do some selective education in November about particular materials. I asked him to reach out to Office of the Aging because I think seniors typically, you'd hate to see a situation where a senior just didn't know about it, although they have been getting warnings, but maybe not. So, to put it in perspective, we've got about 100 households per week that have been, getting warnings out of what? 20 something thousand per week that are being collected. So, that's doing amazingly well. And we have gotten comment from our operator at the recycling center that things, we have one of the lowest contamination rates, in our area of the state with their facility. So any questions, any comments, any concerns at the moment? We will be reporting back to you for a few months on a monthly basis, just to let you know what's going on.
Let's take Ann, then I have a question.
Thank you for this update. I had one question. It didn't exactly follow maybe with what you presented today, but it was just wondering for I think it's the TVs and the monitors, the fee was changed from $15 to $10.
Yeah, that's not in the curbside collection. That's at the drop off. Yep.
Right. But it has to do with that. So it's a little bit different question. Can you explain why that was reduced?
Sure. Let me turn to Leo to be a little more precise than me.
Well, when we budgeted back a year ago for the TVs and monitors, we use that to cover or try to offset most of the costs for the whole electronics program. So now that we've had 8 months of revenue for TV and monitors, we felt as though we could back that down a little bit.
We were just guessing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So, by no means did we overcharge because the total revenue for just the monitors and the TVs doesn't completely offset the total cost of the electronics program. But with that said, it is covering the TVs and the monitors, and we felt as though we could roll it back up.
And the other thing here that's all news that, of course, when I've got my brief budget presentation, is that it really looks like the state is going to once again reintroduce grant money for electronics that they took away, which will give us, we didn't count on that revenue because you never count on it until you know for sure you're going to get it, but that's a positive in terms of the budget.
Okay, great. And I appreciate you doing, the curbside enforcement, and unfortunately, as you know, that's just winds up being part of the education for people that.
It's been 25 years of saying please and, and making adjustments. But on the other hand, one of the things I just thought about when I was sitting here is we can also track by the municipality and then gear our education further, to work with the municipal officials and really see if we've got any hot spots for, where the rejection is taking place. One of the other things that Jeremy's been doing is he's also been reminding people that if your material doesn't get picked up, then the drop spot is still available for you to bring it to us. Take out the crap and you can still come in.
Great. Thank you very much for all you're doing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I guess my question was, someone gets rejected, their bin, and leaves it there. I've seen it happen on my street. 2 weeks later, it's still there. 3-4 weeks later, it's still there. Whose responsibility is it to get the property owner to comply? Is it the municipality? Is it our responsibility? What is it?
I mean, that's been happening anyway. I don't know, actually.
If it's in the city.
The city code.
They don't allow the material to be on the street for more than a certain amount of time, or else they'll.
Yeah, you know what I think, Mike? I think it'd be good for us to touch base with the municipal leaders, let them know what we're doing, so that if there's anything that is on their mind, we can have a conversation with them about it. I do think that the people that tend to put out recyclables want their recyclables to be picked up. And I think that maybe with any zoning laws or anything else, there might be a solution. But that's a really good question that I think we need to mull over.
And also, Mike, I think what this program is going to do is, after we start with the red rejection stickers, there's going to be a group of residents that's going to funnel down, and those are the residents that are going to be identified after a number of months. And then we can take a different approach to reach out to those identified, units of residents.
Those could actually
deal with them.
you're right, Leo. We talked about this. Those residents, my gut is we've gone, I never thought we'd get below 200 and we just did. I was hoping that at 300 we would start to enforce, but with COVID, I was hesitant. But the truth of the matter is, as we look at, the addresses of these residents, we can, we can get that from the hauler. We can certainly work more directly with the folks to give them a hand so that we have as much cooperation as possible. But I think you're giving us a challenge. We'll accept your challenge to do better with that.
I want to take your report to TCOG as well. They'd probably be a good place to hear about the change in enforcement.
Okay. Jason's got his hand up.
Jason's waving.
I was going to suggest TCOG, but also I believe there is a group of code officers that meet regularly in the county. Those would be your individuals that are going to be doing the follow-up enforcement. You may want to try to get on that agenda. Jay Franklin probably knows, Barb, who the point of contact is for that.
Yeah, we'll have Seth pursue that. We'll also send a notice to them and to the municipal officials. And we'll be monitoring, and Leo's right. We can knock on these people's doors, although we won't with COVID, but we could really get pretty personal in terms of, sending them a note and helping them. The goal is not to punish anybody. It's to help them find a way to do a better job. And that's really what drives us.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for all the questions. Yeah, really appreciate it.
Look, can we move on to the RFP issue? We've got about 15 minutes.
Okay, Jonathan's here. John, just to remind you that we received a proposal about a month and a half, 2 months ago from Casella. Where we're at is we received clarification and we're into negotiations now. And Jonathan and I brainstormed with the rest of the team, which is Leo and our engineer and Nate Bates here, this summary to at least give you an understanding of, one, what this proposal was for, what the timing is to move it forward, and what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. Hey, Jonathan.
Hi. Do you want me to run over the summary? I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, we pay you big bucks, Jonathan, from our budget. Let's do it.
Right.
I think we all received copies of it.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so let me just kind of give a little background. I mean, obviously, this is supposed to summarize just where we are and what our status is. But a little background, as you all know, the current 10-year contract to operate the Recycling and Solid Waste Center ends in February, this coming February 2021. What we've done in the past and what we do is have a request for proposal process, which is permitted by law, where basically you issue a draft request for proposals. You get comments from anybody who wants to comment, but it's typically companies in the industry. We got comments from 2 companies. Then you incorporate those comments and make any changes, which we made some changes, and issue a final request for proposals. And then you get proposals. We were hoping to get 2. We're not too shocked to get 1, which is from Casella, which is the current operator of the facility. Just to kind of summarize what we're seeking is there's some capital issues. In other words, some physical improvements to the facility that need to be done. No major reworks. There's just the facility is, I think, 30 years old now. Some things are deteriorating, need some new pavement, some new flooring, some new walls or improvements to those. The sprinkler system is a major issue that we want, obviously, for that to be safe. So there's some capital. And then there's the operating issues. The biggest operating issues, as you know, I mean, we take what we call the single stream, which is the recycling, both that's picked up at your house, as well as small businesses, as well as the drop-off center. And then there's the solid waste or the garbage. And then there is actually a whole list of other items that we take, which is actually in number 7. Don't need to go through them all. But there are those major things which are the largest volume, that the garbage and the single stream. And then there are a lot of things which are smaller, but do take a lot of effort. And a lot of them are taken at the public drop-off area. So we knew that the price was going to come in higher for a couple reasons. One, our contract is 10 years old. We got great prices to begin with 10 years ago. It was a really favorable agreement to us, to the county. But the world has changed a lot in the last 10 years. Prices have continued to go up. And as you know, revenues for everybody have gone way down. So we expected prices to be considerably higher. And Barb had put in her budget in anticipation of $400,000 a year on the operating costs. The proposal is considerably higher than that. Also, the capital costs are somewhat higher. That's an easier issue to deal with by cutting back and just doing what we have to do. It's still going to be a little higher. But the bigger issue is the year-to-year operating costs. And so what we've been doing is basically we sat down with the company several times, try to clarify, why it's so high. I mean, we knew it would be higher, but not as high as it came in. And to see what changes we might be able to make or what negotiation we might be able to do, which would bring it down. It's definitely going to be above the 400,000. The company is working in good faith with us, but we have to be kind of clear. What's going to end up in the end is prices are going to have to be somewhat higher. We're going to have to pay somewhat more money, and very likely we're not going to have the same services. If you look at the list on number 7 of all the products we take, we don't necessarily be able to take every one of those. Also, we're still trying to figure out what the best way is to save money. The drop-off area may be more limited, either in terms of areas that would be used, the products that might be taken. All of this is our part of negotiation. We're trying to figure out, how we can do this at a reasonable price. As you know, some other counties are even giving up recycling totally because of the economic situation. We definitely don't want to do that, but you have to be realistic that it's going to be more money and we may not be able to provide everything that we're currently providing. And I'm sure Barb and I would be happy to, and Leah would be happy to answer any questions, but that's the summary.
I mean, yeah, we can do that, but what I wanted to just help you with, this has been very unpleasant. I mean, I'll be honest. But we're all optimists and I feel like we have a very capable team. Jason has been very involved with us. We just switched over from clarifications to, we had our first negotiating discussion. And these are all Zoom meetings that go 2 or 3 hours. We have made some requests. I have been not so friendly, actually, at this point. And it's going to get more intense in the next couple of weeks with what we want. And Leo has done an incredible amount of calculations and assessments to help drive us forward. And where we're at between, say, now and 2 weeks from now, when you look at the schedule I submitted, my full intention is to do everything humanly possible, including getting Jason to the table as well, which he's willing to do, is to complete those negotiations. And then we'll be continuously meeting as a team with them. And it's not out of the realm of possibilities that at the end of the day, Jonathan, Jason, and I are going to be meeting with the vice president and John Casella himself to get this to a finish line. I'll remind you that we went through the exact same thing with the curbside collection when we issued bids. And right now there's nobody who wants to touch recycling other than Casella. Waste Management came along with us. They did a tour, but they don't want anything to do with anything but hauling and disposing of trash. Yes, they have a facility in Onondaga County, but it's a very, very bad time for what is going on in the world of recycling. I see, weekly hundreds of programs going away. As I mentioned at the legislative meeting for the budget, we did a couple things right here. We have our own facility, so we can negotiate, we can make decisions. We offer much, much more. And quite frankly, because these costs are distributed over residents, colleges, and many other sectors, that $50 a year cost for recycling, the recycling center, the debt service, the food scraps, and all of the education is far less. I mean, I'm seeing numbers that go anywhere from $150 to $300 a year when ours is $50. So all we can say at this point is there's an incredible amount to do. We've got to get this done by the beginning of November. Leo's going on leave for hip replacement surgery, and we're pretty much going to be working nonstop about getting this thing taken care of. That's all I have to report for the moment. Do you have any questions?
I had a couple. Well, one's a comment. Unfortunately, when we only have one bidder, we don't have them to work against. Any idea why the other bidder didn't bid?
Absolutely. I know why. They didn't bid because it's not a moneymaker unless, you really have to, charge an incredible amount of money. And their focus isn't right now on recycling. They just, the powers to be there's only two that could bid, Waste Management and Casella, and they have other facilities. But at this point in time, the reason these prices came in so high is they actually thought that there was another bidder because the other potential bidder came to the facility and they knew through the grapevine that they had interest. So they actually did think that they were coming in. But it's a losing proposition. Leo, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you've hit them all, hit all points.
Yeah. And really, when you look at this, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to keep recycling going in this county. We're going to be transferring recyclables like we transfer trash. We are working on, we knew the price for the processing fee was higher. Leo hit that right on the mark. But, you know, we're working with the other costs, transfer and transportation. We are going to have to, we saw a tremendous increase in the price for operating the drop-off. Some of these materials take a lot of work. We're looking at all these options. As a matter of fact, this afternoon, Leo is getting started with the facility manager, and the vice president right now and I are driving the process. And yeah, we need to feel a better sense of partnership. But what I'll tell you is, you know me, I'm a fighter, and I'm also, we're all going to do the best we can. And Jonathan is extremely valuable, and you know, we're going to keep it going for the next couple of weeks. But at the end of the day, even with what I know where I want to get. Jonathan tells me that I'm being a little bit overly, what's the right word? Ambitious, maybe?
I wondered, maybe this is part of it, or maybe you've already thought about it, but is there any room in these negotiations to tie what we pay them to the price of recycling? In other words, like a sliding scale? If they're not getting good prices, we pay them more. If they're getting better prices, we pay them less.
It's not that kind of market. The prices are horrible everywhere.
That's what currently happens.
And that is what happens, yeah. But it's a good question. And we're talking about, you know, we've seen the markets, as I've talked to you for the last 3 years, they're 75% lower than what they were 3 years ago. Now, I will say, the way we're also trying to negotiate this is, I'm not a gambler, but I am going to tell you that I feel confident that the prices for cardboard in the next year to year and a half, with the domestic markets returning, are going to go up. And we'll see that as a benefit. But we can't forecast that now. You can't take any guesses on this. Jonathan, do you have anything to say about that?
We do split the revenue on recycling, and the proposal is the county would get 70%, the company would get 30%. So we do benefit if the markets go up. What we're really talking about going up where we're not getting any revenue is the basic cost of operating their facility and operating our facility and taking the materials to it. But we will benefit if the markets boom or do better. But we're not anticipating that that's going to be enough to cover our additional costs.
I mean, they have agreed so far to relook at, Leo's prepared some information about their numbers, and they are going to relook at transportation costs for single stream, and possibly a little bit with what goes on there. That is on the docket. We're meeting with them again when, next week on the 12th. We want them to completely rework their proposal for the drop-off area. I mean, the increase is way, way too much money, regardless of a 10-year price. And we are going to be creative. We are going to look at some empty space that's going to happen at the main facility for potentially some of the materials to go down there. We are looking at where else the public could bring these materials. But one of the things that you know is that we offer much, much, much more than any of the other counties in New York State. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but at the end of the day, there will be choices that have to be made. We will give you our best recommendations, and then it's going to be an issue of, okay, I mean, we're not going to like dissect this into 100 pieces, but we are going to give you two choices at the end of the day as to what we might recommend. And there'll be work the committee is going to do. And I'm hoping that we can lock this whole thing up by, before Christmas time. And I think the one thing I ask right now is be patient with us as we do the work for you. And I wanted to see if Jason had any comments or thoughts with his perspective.
No, I think you captured it all, Barb and Jonathan. I mean, I just would like to, compliment the three of you, Jonathan, Barb, Leo, for spending, this has been an all-year effort, and you've done a very diligent job, a very thorough job, and I think you're on the right path. Well, it's a very difficult environment, as we've known for the past few years, specifically, compared to 10 years ago. So I think we're doing all that we can do to get the best price for service, and we'll just continue to plug away at it. But the three of them are doing a remarkable job of it.
We're not very powerful in the recycling area. We don't have a lot of tons. When you look at a company, when you look at Onondaga County, and you look at, they have 5 times at least the amount of materials, and they have a facility right there, and it's not the transportation cost. They have a slightly better situation. But again, we're open as we move forward to more. And quite frankly, what we have to do with the curbside collection is they increase their costs by $1 million on what, $1.2 million contract. We knew it was going to increase dramatically based on a lot of factors, but we had a number of negotiations. And at the end of the day, they did cut that price. We paid $500,000 more. It's just all very big numbers, and we take it very, very seriously that we have to do the best job we can. It's not fun.
Yeah, thank you all for the work you've done on this. And I'll just close out this part of the discussion by simply reminding everyone that Tom Todd used to be a county legislator. And when this all was being born, the whole process, and Barbara, you were there.
I've been here for 34 years, Mike.
Tom always used to remind us that recyclables are commodities, and commodities go up, he said, and commodities go down. And right now we're in a downturn, and it may be a while before they go up again. But whether it's oil or orange juice or whatever, it's a commodity.
Corn, he used to say, yeah. Yeah, and it is time. We don't have to bury the hatchet on certain materials. We can just see how the future holds. And there are certain things we're going to have to continue to be giving the public. Thank you for your time. And when you think of us, just send good thoughts our way. And there's going to come a point where I'm going to bam them over the head, but we're not quite there yet.
We have one other item, Barbara, that's your capital payment summary.
Yeah.
Are there any questions on that?
I'm going to have to take off, Mike, for another meeting.
Thank you, Jason.
Take care, everyone. It's good seeing you.
Thanks, Jason.
You're going to miss my parking comment.
What is it?
I'll just quickly say the designated legislator parking spots out here, I'm going to bring up Tuesday night. I think until we resume in-person meetings, we ought to bag them and let other employees use them.
I'm going to reserve comment on that. All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on the capital payment summary? All right. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your trust in us.
Let's do minutes. Got September 15th and September 17th. Ann, you want to move? You're moving both or one?
Let's do both.
Ann's moving both. Is there a second for both? Seconded by Glenn. Discussions on either or? Let's vote. Ann?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We got some budget adjustments and transfers. And and we've got a budget transfer for weights and measures. Any questions about those? All right, anything else for the good of the order today? Yes, Glenn.
We have a meeting at 4:30 this afternoon.
I'm sorry?
Does F and I have a special meeting this afternoon at 4:30?
No. You mean,
Public safety meets at 3 o'clock.
I know that, but I got a message that we have an F and I special meeting at 4:30.
Who'd you get the message from?
I believe you. I'll send the email to Mike and have him comment.
all right, it's not to my knowledge, Glenn.
Can you forward it to me too?
I hate to have you meet alone.
I'm going to sign off. I have another meeting now too.
Thank you, Rick, for being here.
Rick. I don't have, I checked, I don't have an email saying that we have a meeting today.
All right. Well, anyway, there's no meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, move to adjourn. All in favor? Thanks all. Good meeting. Covered a lot of territory today.
Longest F&I meeting we've had in a while.